This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. Parental discretion is advised.
What we are witnessing here is the return of Titans.
How many of these things are there?
17 and counting.
That's messed up.
Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah.
Oh my. They're moving like a pack. They're hunting. They all respond directly to an alpha. We stop this Ghidorah, we stop them all.
Is there another creature that might stand a chance against him?
My God, Zilla.
Our planet will perish, and so will we. Unless we set Godzilla free.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's bring him in for a beer. No, this time we join the fight.
Run.
This is Godzilla's world. We just live in it.
Damn right.
Welcome to the Box Office Barflies podcast. I'm your host, Joey Two Scoops, Joe Mandel. But anyway, we are live, and we are here to talk about an excellent monster movie. And here I'm talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Tooch, we have a special guest here, though, to talk about it. So let's go ahead and introduce him with his favorite metal song. The Bears Barroom's resident Godzilla expert is here, and that's right, it's Aaron Michalski. Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
I am excited to be here with you guys. I'm doing great and looking forward to talking some Godzilla with you. How are you, gentlemen?
Great.
Oh, we're doing great, man. And talk about a flick full of action. It doesn't get much more action-packed than this, huh?
No, sir, it doesn't. That was everybody's complaint about the first Godzilla, was there wasn't enough Godzilla. But this one, almost from front to back, is non-stop monster action. 100% heart pumping, ready to go.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Joe, did Aldo say we could drink in here?
I don't drink because drinking affects your decision-making.
You may be right. I can't decide.
Plenty of drinks around here, and there's no I have a stream tonight, but we're doing Box Office Barflies. I assure all the Barflies out there in Barfly Nation, we will be back next week. And Tooch, we're going to be talking about Good Omens and the Deadwood movie. So make sure you guys tune in next week for that.
Some special guests. Oh, it's going to be great. Let's get into Godzilla, huh, Joe?
Yeah, let's do it, man. And for everyone who's new to the show, we talked the first half of it, spoiler-free, giving our recommendations, talking a little bit about the movie and what we thought about it. And then the second half of the show will go into the spoiler section, which will break it down and talk about all the nitty-gritty bits that everyone wants to talk about. So I do have a special guest here that wanted to say hi. So real quick, here is our special guest, Godzilla. Thanks for joining us, Godzilla.
He says hi.
Yeah, that doesn't say much more than that, I don't think.
I might do that drop like 20 times this show, guys.
Nice.
So.
We could ask him once for A, twice for B.
Yeah, well, I could probably figure out what he's going to give his own movie, but we'll get to that later. But gentlemen, I'm going to throw it to Aaron first because he is our resident Godzilla expert. So, Aaron, what is your spoiler-free review before we get into it? And is there anything else you want to talk about Godzilla?
You know, spoiler-free. So, like I said, the one thing everybody complained about out of the first Godzilla was that there wasn't enough monster action. You hardly saw Godzilla. I loved the first one. It built up the suspense well enough and really delivered once they did get rolling. But this one, like I said, is nonstop, heart-pounding kaiju action. This one is not. I mean, you don't even have to be a diehard Godzilla fan to enjoy this. A lot of people call this kind of movie like just a shut your brain off and watch monsters take each other out. That's the kind of movie that this one is. I recommend it for anybody who's out looking for an action-packed movie for the summer.
I love it. I know I loved it, but before I get into my little nitty-gritty bits about it, Tooch, what is your non-spoiler review?
Well, it looked amazing. I would like to see this movie in 3D. I don't know if it's available in 3D, but that would have been really cool. The monsters looked fantastic, very realistic, and special effects were, they were so good. And it's a popcorn movie. You'll have a good time if you go. You're not gonna, dislike it. But is it, the deepest of all movies? No, it's a monster movie. It's fun. Let's go to the movie with your son, maybe, or your buddy. It's a good summer flick.
Sorry, I like using the fart drop sometimes. So, and anyway, I agree with you, Tooch. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I'm not shooting it down at all. I really had a great time at the movie theater. I thought it's one of the best Godzilla movies I've seen in a long time. And it filled the void for me with monster fights. There was monster fights galore in this, and to be honest, you probably didn't even have to follow the story all that much if you wanted to just check out some sweet monster fights. That was worth the price of admission alone. So if you're a guy or a girl who's into awesome CGI, awesome work behind the camera, there's some great performances in this as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the cast, which is really star-studded here. So if this doesn't sell you on the movie, I don't know what will. But you got Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things fame. She plays Eleven in that show, and she played Madison Russell in this movie. You had Vera Farmiga, who played Dr. Emma Russell, who was her mother. You had Charles Dance, who played the villain, Jonah Allen. And if you guys don't know him, he played Tywin Lannister on Game of Thrones, so you could probably figure it out that he's the bad guy. I don't think that's much of a spoiler. Kyle Chandler is the leading man in this one, and he was fantastic as Mark Russell, the father of Madison, which is Millie Bobby Brown. And a couple other standouts, in my opinion. You had Ken Watanabe, who played Dr. Ishiro, who's great. He's from some other awesome movies like Inception, just to name one. And then lastly, Bradley Whitford was like this kind of quirky doctor that was going on the mission with them, white-haired doctor with glasses. He played Dr. Rick Stanton, and he was fantastic as well. So overall, this cast was really good, but I think the CGI stole the show in this one. And before we get further into this, talking details, before we went live, I talked a little bit with Aaron and Tooch about the history of Godzilla a little bit. So I'm going to toss this one. I'm going to toss this one to Aaron for a second because he was talking about how Godzilla came to be. So why don't you touch on that a little bit, Aaron?
So what I was telling you guys, what happened was after World War II, Japan wanted to make a movie basically telling about the horrors of the atomic bomb, but the United States and the Allies basically told them you weren't allowed to do that because I don't think they expected it to be quite as horrible as it ended up being, and seeing everything that turned out as it did. So Japan said, fine, we're not going to make a movie about World War II and the atomic bomb and the horrors. So basically, I don't know if the word you want to look for is allegory, but basically they created Godzilla to show the horrors and destruction that the atomic bombs that got dropped on Japan caused that whole civilization. So it's actually kind of a way to talk about the horror and destruction without really directly talking about what happened.
Wow, that's some really deep stuff, man. And it turned into like a monster franchise. Tooch, I know you were talking a little bit about the details there. Tell us a little bit about how long Godzilla's been around and the history of that franchise.
Well, the original film, 1954, and it is the longest running film franchise in history according to Guinness Book of World Records, which I used to have all those. I don't know, you guys are probably too young. I used to have Guinness Book of World Records.
I used to have one. Yeah,
too.
Yeah, too. No, I definitely did
too. Pouring through those books. Just a little aside there, but 35 films total over 65 years, and it's the longest running film franchise history, as I said. And when I was a kid, I was kind of into those. I remember when they were playing on TV. I used to, make a point when I was a little kid to get in front of Godzilla, watch a guy in a suit trampling on miniatures and stuff. Yeah. And it was like, it was cool, but it was also funny. It was like a great way to, they had such great imagination with the creatures and everything, and it was a huge hit, man. It was an international franchise, and they're still going strong. As this distilled version of Godzilla is the latest version.
And you got that MonsterVerse going on where they have all the different movies kind of summing in together. You got Godzilla, you got Kong Skull Island, now you got the new Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is going to be followed up next year. And I know Aaron and I are really excited about this one. It's going to be King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus King Kong. I can't remember what the exact name is, but either way, you get the idea. And that's
big old creatures swinging at each other. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's going to be some badass fighting next year, so I'm looking forward to that. Before we move on, gentlemen, though, I want to get everyone's grade generically before we can get into the spoiler section. And Tooch, I'm going to give it to you first. What is your grade for Godzilla King of the Monsters?
I'm going to give it a solid B. I mean, the special effects are an A, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a few things we'll talk about in the spoiler section that I would have done differently. And you guys let me know if you think it would have been a better film. Let's have some ideas, But I'm going to give it a solid B, Joe. And I'm going to say, you know what? If you're out and you want to, go into a loud movie with fantastic special effects and lots of monsters fighting each other, you're going to love it, So
nice.
That's my grade.
Well, before we get to Aaron, I'm going to give my piece because I'll let the Godzilla expert go last, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a solid B as well, Tooch. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fantastic. My main problem with the movie is it felt a little bit too long. It felt like it dragged out in a few places.
I agree.
Not with the monsters. The monster scenes were great. I wish there would have been more monsters. But some of the scenes that had the story developing with humans felt a little dragged out, and I felt like it could have maybe been 15 to 20 minutes shorter, and I think I probably would have liked the movie a little bit better if it was. But overall, it's a fantastic movie. It gave me exactly what I wanted, and I will say it's probably some of the best CGI work that I've seen in the last 20 years. Like, it's that impressive. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check it out. It's badass. Godzilla throwing guys into chopping heads off, all that good stuff. It's everything you want and more. So I'm going to stick with a solid B, but let's go ahead and pass it off to the Godzilla expert, Aaron himself. Aaron, what's your grade, my friend?
Man, so I got to go, for me, A+. I'm such a diehard Godzilla fan since... Oh, come on now. So, since the beginning, but also, I don't go see movies if there's not some kind of monster or sci-fi something. It has to... I'm a pretty simple moviegoer. We'll just put it that way. Like everybody's talking about, what was that Lady Gaga? I don't give two shits about
Star is
whatever
Born.
A star. That's the dumbest, most boring garbage. I don't want to watch anything like that. Give me something with giant monsters, blowing flame breaths and tail swipes and all that kind of. That is absolutely my kind of movie. So, Godzilla's definitely my thing. It's kind of when I want to go to a movie, I want to shut my brain off and have a good time. So I give it an A+.
Hey man, I will take nothing away from you there because I had a great time. I'm just thinking of it in the big picture because we review so many movies, but that's why we got you. Sure. That's why we got you here, man. You're our Godzilla man, and Tooch, I think you probably know what time it is.
Slip into the spoilers section.
That's right. So everyone who's listening knows. After we talk about the main movie, we go into the spoiler section. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are parting ways into the spoiler section. Spoiler alert! That's right, that was the spoiler alert, and that means that we are going into the spoiler section. So, Tooch, all our listeners know that when we talk about the movie, we always start with the opening scene. So, my friend, why don't you break down the opening scene and let's talk about it.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool opening scene. I mean, it was like really set the tone because it's like post-apocalyptic war. You have like, you know, it's basically really dark black kind of and a lot of reds and yellows of fire, you know, and glowing, and it's San Francisco destroyed by Godzilla, I guess, and Kyle Chandler, who plays Mark Russell, right? Mark Russell?
That is correct, sir.
They had you know, some kind of family accident during this, you know, that last encounter with Godzilla was 2004. So you're in 15 years later.
2014.
2014. 2014. And 5 years, kids are a little grown up. You find out later what had happened. So
you find out.
Reveal the family tragedy a little bit later. So.
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit later, but the moral of the story is that they were searching for their kids in that opening scene. It was kind of, you know, Godzilla was tearing apart the city, and they're looking for their two kids. And kind of fast forward into the future there, and it goes to talk a little bit about Vera Farmiga's character, who's Dr. Emma Russell, who is a researcher for Monarch, which if you guys have watched some of the other movies, Monarch is the organization responsible for finding/hiding these titans, if you will, or Gojira, or what's the term, Aaron? I'll throw it to you. Kaiju, thank you. Gojira is the Japanese name for Godzilla, I believe. So I think I mixed up the two. That shows that's why we have the Godzilla guy here.
Well, that's why you got me here, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
and that's right. But you know, they're doing some research, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but does it start when they go to check out the first monster that was underground? Is that where the movie starts? I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, it starts with Miley Bobby Brown and her mom go to. They're actually, was it Mexico? Because they were next.
It was great because you think they're in like a normal, you know, house.
Yeah, the house,
in the suburbs, maybe California or something, but you're given a look, you know, above, like a, you know, a 10,000-foot look, and they're at some you know,
like an Aztec
compound.
ruin or one of those.
Yeah, in South America. I think it was like South America or somewhere in the jungle. You know, and she's been living at the research facility with her mom, and it looks like it's community, you know, to study that one giant monster.
Mothra.
Or Mothra, yeah. But she was incubating the Mothra monster.
And
that was a cool monster, man.
Yeah, it sure was. The whole thing was cool, and you know, her character, her Dr. Russell, was developing this machine that could, you know, communicate with them and kind of put them at ease, give them peace, but also cause them agitation. And that's kind of where this movie takes off. You know, the doctor runs out there to stop Mothra from going crazy and killing everybody, and she uses that sonar, whatever you want to call it, to communicate with it. And as that's happening, Charles Dance's character, Jonah Allen, storms into the facility, killing all of the doctors except for Dr. Russell and her daughter, Madison. And that's kind of where the movie takes off, guys, right? Aaron, why don't you talk about it a little bit after that?
Yep, absolutely. So that whole thing kind of kicks it off, and they do a great job in the commercials of not really telling you who the bad guys are. Because I came in thinking, I was like, well, I know Ghidorah is going to be the bad guy, but I didn't know that there was going to be a faction of humans that they called, basically, I think the term was eco-terrorists, where they were looking to set the kaiju free because humanity was destroying the world. So they wanted to set the kaiju free to basically wipe out humanity to restore, balance. So they're going full on Thanos as far as the kaiju are concerned.
Right.
Just trying to wipe out, a lot of life to restore the balance. So, like you were saying, they had a machine that they called, I think, the Orca.
Yes,
and
that's it.
The Orca was able to communicate with. They used it, and I have to see it again because they actually used a bunch of different names. So like they were swiping through it, and they actually were taking the vocals from a lot of the different kaiju, and they were kind of creating a broadcast to communicate. Like we saw really early on with Mothra, we saw that she had the wrong frequency, and it really agitated, and it started attacking. But then she got the right one, and then it calmed it down. So that was one of the first actually Easter eggs that I was able to notice. The last one on the screen that they showed when they were flipped the tablet was Kong.
Nice.
So there was, and I had someone. I want to go back and see if there were other ones that I didn't see, but that was the last one that I was like, oh, maybe I should pay attention. And it was in the last one that they showed on there that they had the frequency of was Kong.
Yeah, I was trying to pay attention and read them all, but they were swiping pretty fast there, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah, they were also in Latin too, but like another thing we'll get into here in a bit is a lot of the ones that they showed other than the main three, the Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, the other kaiju like I was mentioning before, the air were actually, they created them. They weren't actual monsters that were licensed with, I think it's Toho before. They actually created, like in the first 2014 Godzilla, they created the Mutos. The massive bona fide terrestrial organisms. Those were classic monsters. They basically created those for the Godzilla movies. So they did with the other major ones that we'll talk about here in a bit too.
Yeah, I know there was one that looked like a woolly mammoth, and I was like,
oh,
whoa.
Dude, it's a mastodon! How cool is that? Oh, that was my favorite one. They showed it in the opening credits too. They showed a cave carving, and I was like, oh my god, that one has to be in the movie. And I've got it actually saved on my phone as a wallpaper. I can't, like this, it's a mastodon Godzilla monster. Like that's everything I love. Like combined into one is the coolest thing.
Well, that explains your drop when we introduce you. That's for sure.
You bet. You bet. I was looking forward to drop a little bit of information in on it.
But Tooch, what are some performances that kind of caught your eye and you really liked in this movie? What did you think about the cast?
Well, I had a pretty good cast. I mean, you're thinking Millie Bobby Brown. That's got to be good. That girl is a good actress. Mm-hmm. I love her in Stranger Things, and she really is, the standout of all the kids on that show. In fact, I predict she'll have a really great career.
Oh, for sure.
She's gonna be a star. Eventually, you're gonna see her in the, dramas when she's like in her 20s and 30s.
She's still young, but she seems like she's handling it well.
She's probably, was she 16, 17, 18 years old?
Yeah, but she
there?
seems like even keeled and well balanced and doesn't seem like she's losing it. And she just seems like she handles fame really well, at least so far. I mean, she's still pretty early to tell.
Yeah, very good actress. Yeah, and she did fine here. Cal Chandler, I have a hard time separating myself from the Peter Jackson King Kong role where he was, I don't know if you remember that movie. Cal Chandler was like the fake hero. The movie star who was like, didn't want to do anything heroic. He was actually just a guy, but who ends up doing something heroic anyways. But he's good. I mean, he was okay. He's not like a box office draw for me, but he was serviceable. And then of course you have, Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister chewing the scenery. You have great performances from the two Chinese cast members. I think one is Japanese, or Akira Watanabe is Japanese.
Japanese, yeah.
Xi Zhang is Chinese, and really like her. She's super pretty. I loved her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah. She was the one who stole the Jade Dragon sword, and he fell in love with her back then. She was so cute, and of course Vera Farmiga. She's strangely attractive. I always enjoy her, and I just, like Aaron said, the main conflict, of course, they want to bring these kaiju, wake them up and let them walk the earth destroying things, but that will help the earth rebuild itself. And, hey, there's lots of underground bunkers, right, where we can make it to the bunkers, you'll be okay. But the secondary conflict was kind of like the family conflict, where their family was kind of torn apart by the accident. You find out later that the little boy, Millie Bobby Brown's little brother, had died. and split up the family. Kyle Chandler's living on his own. Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown are living together. They're still researching the kaiju. Mark Russell gave up, Kyle Chandler gave up studying the kaiju, we assume, and he's called back into action. Of course, there's a lot of the action movie tropes, but and then of course there's this great kind of underdeveloped the special forces team that was around. Man, there was an ace pilot. I don't know who played her, but I would have liked to kind of added that. It's kind of like an action team movie. I'm not sure that the family dynamic. It's kind of, we've seen that kind of thing before. It would have been maybe they're a family of scientists who help out, but you got this great aliens SWAT team, from Aliens, James Cameron, Aliens. You follow these characters. That would have been cool.
Yeah, they were charming. I thought that group of soldiers was really charming, and they had a lot of humor, and I got a kick out of them, and I kind of wanted to see more of them. I agree.
You have the Verizon guy too. I think I don't know his name. Canadian actor.
I'm not sure either. Real quick, I do want to rewind it back that a lot of the family drama came from, like you mentioned when we first started talking about it, the Miley Bobby Brown's brother died, but I don't remember if you mentioned that he died in the incident of 2014 where Godzilla was fighting the Mutos. That's where the whole movie started. So the boy died there, and they split up. The father split up, and that's actually what launched the mom into the eco-terrorist thing. She's just, that was the thing that they kept bringing up, is why, the husband, the father kept saying, do you think this is what your son would have wanted? You're basically destroying the whole Earth. It's just what he would have wanted. So it was a tragedy born of Godzilla.
For me, I thought it was kind of fell flat. Maybe they just left Charles Dance and his team to be the eco-terrorists and the family. I think it would have made a little bit better story. I mean, I kind of buy that the mom would go crazy. She was kind of it was kind of the same thing like Daenerys burning down King's Landing. She went a little Daenerys.
Yeah.
She went a little Targaryen.
I definitely agree that would have been a better way to take the human aspect of it if they would have gone. It almost seems like, hey, we're eco-terrorists. Now it's a divorce thing, and they kind of almost seems like they took a back seat to the eco-terrorist plot. The terrorist plot took a back seat to everything else. It seemed like they almost completely forgot about the eco-terrorist thing real quick.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Godzilla is the better story, and the humans are secondary. You want
absolutely
Godzilla. He went through a struggle in this film. Godzilla, he's going to come up and save us. He's the king, and he's benevolent. He kind of wanted to build it a little bit more around Godzilla, give him a little bit more personality. I mean, they gave him some personality. There's some great scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, where he's swimming underwater, and they open the screens. And that was great. I mean,
put your weapons down, show them we're not a threat, and then Godzilla didn't attack him. Well, then I don't know if we're gonna jump too far ahead. He had a scene with Ken Watanabe towards the end that kind of the same thing as the first one, where after he fell, I can't remember the character's name. Brody was the character in the first movie where he had a moment where it almost looked like he looked him in the eyes, kind of a thing. So kind of in both movies, they've done a really good job of showing Godzilla's character, not just a monster, but it's showing it almost connecting with the humans, recognizing that the humans are there, and and in the trailer it said, you want Godzilla to be our pet? And Ken Watanabe says, no, we'd be his. So you recognize that he recognizes humanity, and he's actually out there fighting for us.
Yeah, and I thought that was unbelievable. I really enjoyed that dynamic of the movie, especially some of the scenes with Congress not understanding how everything works, with the food chain, if you will. And then you kind of see all these other kaiju kind of going wild, and that kind of takes us to the next portion here. After Mothra escapes and kind of is hibernating under a waterfall, going in a cocoon, you see that Vera Farmiga, Dr. Emma Russell, and Millie and all the other terrorists go to Antarctica, which is another site of a Monarch expedition, if you will. And they get there, and of course Kyle Chandler and all the other special forces find out where they're going because they see Godzilla's heading that way. And they get there, and they find everybody, and then the eco-terrorists and Vera Farmiga wake up the sleeping King Ghidorah.
Monster Zero.
Monster Zero. And for you folks out there who don't know what that is, you would probably recognize it because it's the three-headed dragon which is a badass looking thing. I tell you what, it's instead of breathing fire, it breathes lightning. So that is everything and more that you could possibly ask for. So they wake that thing up. Godzilla shows up, and it's a battle, man. Tooch, what did you think about that scene? Tooch, you break it up a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and toss this to Aaron. Aaron.
Yep. So, actually, it was kind of funny when you were mentioning the nurse. It was a couple episodes into the season. They actually released like a 5-minute clip of Godzilla on HBO. I think it was actually the same night as the Battle of Winterfell. So
yeah, I remember.
The 5-minute clip, I didn't think they were going to start it off, Godzilla versus Ghidorah right away, but that's really set the tone for the rest of the movie. Like, hey, here's Monster Zero. He's, king of the monsters. Here's Godzilla, who's also king. They're both, what they call alphas. And they started duking it out automatically. And that was one of those, like, okay, here we go kind of moments. Like, they're really going to, do this right, at least in my opinion, as far as the monster battles go.
Well, and then they set up Ghidorah to be this monster villain. So not only is he a badass monster, but when he flies around, there's a hurricane around him. I mean, how badass is that?
That's so badass too. Also, I want to mention that I think is her name Sally Fields?
Sally. She
died almost right away. Sally Hawkins, thank you. Almost right away. That surprised the heck out of me. I was not ready for that. It was a King Ghidorah crushed her. I think it was.
Didn't he eat her? I think he ate her.
She got eaten. One. Yeah.
Oh, seriously? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was kind of a waste of didn't she, the Shape of Water, right?
Yeah.
Was,
absolutely.
Fantastic and Academy Award for her, I think.
I thought.
Yeah, it was a waste of a great actress. It would have been great to develop her a little bit farther. Give her some more stuff to do, but.
Following the pattern of the first one, who expected Bryan Cranston to bite it? I did not expect him to die in the first one at all. And almost, like I said, pretty early on, I remember going to see it with my buddy, and we both were like, that's it. They're just, I expected him to be the star of the movie.
Yeah, that was surprising. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing with Godzilla movies is they never really go where you expect. Like, you always know that there's going to be a monster fight, but the human element of the story, it kind of goes off the deep end sometimes. And I hate to bring it up, but the 1999 Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, that was unexpected as well.
Yep, there's a lot of things that was pretty unexpected with that movie. It's one of those two. Looking back at it at the time, I thought it was the best thing. Anytime you do Godzilla, I'm going to be all over it. But of course, it's kind of like Spider-Man. Looking back at the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man,
sure,
thank you. But that's after we have
Tom Holland.
That's Tom Holland. He's like, well, now that we got the real thing, the other thing doesn't look so good. But at the time, the thing was legit. Well, that's kind of how the old one was.
Well, you set that one perfect up for us, Aaron. Coming July 4th, or July 5th, technically, you got Spider-Man Far From Home coming out, and we will definitely be reviewing that one. Our friend, comic book artist, and comic nerd, Ethan Colchamero, will be joining us for that review. So
excellent.
Make sure you guys tune back in for that later on in July. I got my tickets to see it on the 4th of July, so that's going to be celebrating America in the best way possible.
And man, there were some great previews before the movie, I'll tell you that. Dark Phoenix, which starts next week.
That's next week,
that
too.
Looks killer. Yep. And then the Hobbs and Shaw Fast and Furious thing. Oh, man. Fast and Furious is great, man.
I have not seen a single Fast and Furious movie.
And towards the end, they were awesome. Yeah. The car stunts are amazing. Lots of martial arts action. You got the fight scenes and car stunts, and man, amazing stunts in all those Fast and Furious ones.
There's some great summer movies coming out this year. Then you got Men in Black coming out soon. You got The Lion King. And I saw this weekend, as well as Godzilla, I saw Rocket Man, which was fantastic. The Elton John biopic. So highly recommend that. I think we may be reviewing that one soon as well. I know Barfly Badge reached out to us earlier today saying that he saw that. So perhaps we could have him on next week to talk about Rocket Man.
I'd like to point out Godzilla literally did double of Rocket Man in the box office. Go ahead and point that one out too. That's another one for me. It doesn't have monsters in it. I'll see when it comes out, but that's not an Aaron movie.
I love the Bohemian Rhapsody, man. That was killer.
That one was really
Queen.
good. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Queen biopic was great.
Did you guys see The Dirt? Did you guys watch that?
I have not seen that yet. I want to see that so bad.
That's absolutely.
That's one we can talk about on I Have a Stream one day soon.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. No, that was a good one. I really enjoyed that one too.
That would be cool to talk about. Yeah, man. As far as this movie, I mean, if it were coming on cable, I'd probably watch it again. Because the special effects are just amazing. The visuals are amazing. The sound effects are killer. Would I own the Blu-ray? I don't know. Maybe if there was a director's cut or that family conflict to me kind of fell flat. I would have liked it. I mean, let's send the positive family message out there. I don't care how many times you send that family positive. I didn't buy the mom goes crazy, kind of blows up the world, or tries to, and then redeems herself at the end to.
Well, I mean, since we're kind of since we're in that spoiler section, Tooch.
Yeah.
You talked about her redeeming herself at the end. You know, it just didn't make any sense to me that she would go ahead and sacrifice herself when it didn't really seem like it was necessary. I don't know if you guys would agree with me.
I definitely do. I definitely agree with you. Just get on the plane.
Because Godzilla would have kicked King Ghidorah's ass anyway. Yeah. I mean, he was about to turn full nuclear. Just get on the plane and fly away.
Yeah.
But she unnecessarily sacrificed herself.
Yeah.
And let her daughter watch her get destroyed by a monster. I mean, that was pretty messed up, right?
Yeah, at least at this point in my movie watching career, I'm older than you guys, and Joe and I review a lot of sequels, and then we talk about a lot of, oh man, it's been done so many times. Well, if you're going to do it so many times and do it, you might as well do the classic, family story. Family comes together, saves the day. Maybe they're an adjunct to an army team, or, the classic, family comes back together. That would have been a better story, I think, for me.
But like we were talking about earlier, Godzilla filmed threw you for a loop, and it's one of those two that there's a movie that that's what you'd expect, and I'm glad it didn't take that route. I'd rather it go a little bit different, kind of keep up with that. It's like that's of course they're gonna come back together and they're gonna be happy. I don't, I don't like how it ended. It was like you said. I think it was dumb that she sacrificed herself. It was completely unnecessary, but I'm kind of glad they didn't just it's a happy ending kind of deal and just roll with it.
I said at the beginning, I think less people would have been better in this movie.
Sure.
Maybe,
or at least a little bit different or more attention on different people. They could have, the eco-terrorist angle would have been neat.
Yeah, they could have streamlined it, because to me it was kind of distilled down. They added a few this is basically the essence of Godzilla. The monster. Rising up out of the coming and fighting the coming and fighting and getting saving the day. I would have liked to have learned more about Godzilla and where that secret place he was it some kind of civilization? I would have liked to develop that. The other stuff, I mean, I guess if you have Millie Bobby Brown in it, what are you gonna do? She's got to be someone's kid.
Fair.
And they wanted her in the movie, because that's Stranger Things was the draw. And the monster's the draw, but adding her in there, is a, marketing choice.
No doubt, I would agree with that. And let's
fair.
Also talk for a second about that final fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah. And then you got Mothra coming in, giving an assist to Godzilla.
And sacrificing herself.
Yeah, and then you got Rodan. Yeah, and then you got Rodan as well, the pterodactyl-looking demon fire monster. So you got Mothra and Rodan kind of throwing down. You got Mothra, looks like she's about to get killed by Rodan, and then Mothra just kind of like knifes it through the heart. That was pretty sweet.
That was a pretty cool addition.
Yeah, that was
cool.
She
didn't have that in the past, and then she hit him with that, and I was like, okie dokie, that's a neat little addition they did for her.
I didn't see that coming at all.
No, no.
Was Rodan kind of a bad kaiju, or I mean, I know Rodan fought, but then it kind of came up and it bowed down to Godzilla at the end.
Well, because Godzilla at the end became the alpha, so I mean, everything kind of followed Ghidorah for the longest time, and that's why all the kaiju and the different ones were destroying the city, because that's what he was telling them to do. But then once King Ghidorah died, Godzilla became the alpha, and basically they're all paying his respects. So in the beginning, Rodan was But at the end, it's kind of like they know he's the boss, so they're going to come up and pay their respects to him, kind of a deal.
I thought Rodan died. Did I miss something?
No, I did too.
I thought too, but no, it was there at the end.
Yep, he was definitely there at the end. He's one of the ones when they all kind of circled around Godzilla and he let loose the big badass roar. It kind of actually did the thing where it put his wings out and more or less bowed to him.
Yeah,
nice. So it didn't die.
But Mothra died.
Yeah, sacrifice. But that's when Godzilla went full nuclear too.
Yeah.
The
Mothra dust.
Yeah.
Fell, right?
Yep, absolutely. She kind of like integrated, I guess is the best word for that.
Well, the Japanese certainly have some imagination, man. I tell you, I love Pacific Rim too, which is like anytime you get these giant monsters fighting giant robot suits.
They talked about doing a Godzilla and Pacific Rim crossover when Pacific Rim first came out, but obviously that didn't end up working out.
Yeah, see, for me, I love Pacific Rim because you got that added robot suit,
Jaegers
dynamic. The Jaegers is to me that's just wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like Godzilla plus one. We're both of course same genre and love the imagination on this monster movies. Love the imagination.
Giant monsters, you got my attention, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about that monster fight, but the way it ends, Godzilla goes full nuclear. And to put it lightly, he eats King Ghidorah. He swallows him and chomps him whole. I mean, that was unreal.
Did not see that coming. Because it showed King Ghidorah, at least one of the heads coming out of the rubble. I was like, there's no way it just survived that. And then it shows that Godzilla had the head in its mouth. I thought that was a pretty great twist there on the end.
Yeah, they grew back a head at one point too, I think. Didn't they grow back a head?
Pretty early on, I think. Actually, Godzilla ripped the head off it, and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And I didn't know it was a Hydra, and it regenerated one of them.
That was wild.
So that's actually something we're going to touch on in a second in the post-credit scene, but there is a head that gets severed in that first fight between the two. We'll touch on that in 1 second, but before we do, Godzilla obviously kills King Ghidorah, and then all the kaiju are summoned around him in what is easily the best shot of the movie. Godzilla roars to the sky, lets out some breathing fire, and all the monsters kneel down and bow to the king. And that was a sweet ending, man. What did you guys think about that?
Nope, absolutely loved it. I guess the only thing that I would have changed about kind of the ending is when he went full nuclear, I was waiting for a great big rip-roaring breath weapon. And I didn't get it, and that was pretty disappointing. I wanted him to cut loose with a great big red flaming thing instead of the blue. Maybe it's bigger, maybe it looks different, something special. But they kind of looked like almost like a gamma pulse instead, which was cool. It just, I mean, as a Godzilla fan, it just wasn't what I was expecting, or to be perfectly honest, what I wanted, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that ending where they're all kind of bowing to him, Rodan included, and you got to see the Mastodon thing again, so automatically I'm pretty happy, but I thought that was a pretty cool way to end it. Before we get to the post-credit thing, the lack of Kong at the end really bothered me, especially knowing that Godzilla vs. King Kong is coming up.
Yeah,
I really felt like they kind of dropped the ball on that. Like with Black Panther being the last movie before Infinity War, they didn't show anything, for Infinity War at the end of Black Panther. I feel like this would have been a real great opportunity to have shown maybe, a battlefield and Kong standing over some kind of giant monster. Maybe he's the king over there, and then you're going to have the two alphas come together, kind of a deal. But
for sure.
I've missed a couple of different missed opportunities there at the end, at least in my opinion.
Well, and you see in the post-credit, or not the post-credits, in the credits, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but they're kind of showing all the creatures on the map and how they're moving around. And I don't know if you noticed that, but they were all heading towards Skull Island. And I think that's kind of setting it up. Yeah, I think that's kind of setting it up for, all the Titans are heading towards Skull Island. And
well, there's Monster Island in the old school Godzilla, movies. There's what they call Monster Island, where they're all kind of, I guess, live, and not necessarily obviously in harmony, but that's where they all live. So I wonder if that's what they're kind of doing with Skull Island. Everybody always wondered, how does King Kong go to Godzilla? But obviously, that's something I didn't notice, was I guess they're all going there.
That's the way I took it, and I think I saw a couple breakdowns discussing that. But let's dive into the post-credits scene, because that's going to open up some more conversation. And Aaron, I'll go ahead and let you explain the post-credit scene, since you're the resident expert here.
So the post-credit scene, and it showed, forgive me, the character played Tywin Lannister. It showed him walking down a dark hallway. Yeah, Charles Dance. It showed him walking down a hallway into a giant, would look like maybe a freezer room. And the thing that got kind of a kick out of is it just showed this really dark room. They turned the lights on, and there's like 20 people standing in there. So they were just kind of hanging out in the dark.
I guess.
But it showed with one of the ripped off heads of Ghidorah in there. And if you remember earlier on in the movie, they said something about kaiju DNA is actually pretty hot on the black market for whether pharmaceutical research. There's a couple of different theories I think they may have to do with it, but that it ended with him saying, "I'll take it." So he's basically going to take King Ghidorah head, and what he's going to do with it, I think, is interesting. There's a couple of different takes on what I think could possibly be happening with it, but we'll let you guys see what you think is going to happen with it first.
Well, I have a feeling that they're going to clone it in some sort of way, and maybe make a mecha Ghidorah. I know in the comics, in the old movies, there was like a robotic version as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they go that route, or they simply do a clone, or they make a giant army of the things. I mean, there's a million different ways it could go. Tooch, what do you think?
I didn't stick around for the end credit scenes because I had to go to the bathroom. But it was long. That was like 2 hours, 15 minutes long.
Well, you know what? You want to?
I didn't know I was supposed to stick around, but.
But what do you think they would do with one of those heads, though, Tooch, if they were to clone it, or what do you think that they might do?
It has to be some kind of Jurassic Park cloning, I would think, or create some kind of monsters, to larger than before,
Yeah, and one thing that they touched on in the movie too is that Ghidorah was never of the Earth. It was a extraterrestrial being.
Yeah. That's
so
right. I forgot to mention that.
Maybe they could use it to call more of them. There's a billion different ways it could go. I'm curious to see what Aaron thinks.
So a couple of months ago, they actually had Mike Dougherty, the director for it, actually came out. They asked him what other monsters he'd want to use if he got the opportunity. And one of them, the monster's name is Biollante. So Biollante is actually, if you look up Biollante, it's actually something humanity created to fight Godzilla. It used DNA from, which would be a twist. It used DNA from Godzilla. It combined Godzilla DNA with human DNA as well as DNA of a rose, I think. And basically, it's a genetically engineered kaiju created by humanity to fight Godzilla. So I'm wondering if that's where they could take, instead of it being obviously from Godzilla, maybe it's one part King Ghidorah, and maybe use it that way. Would be the only thing that I can think of,
that's
since he did mention that's what he'd want to do. Is he said he want to do Biollante, or there's one named Destroya, or I don't know if it's Gigan or Gigan. It's Gigan is another one he said he'd want to use. But that was my interpretation of it. It may not be Godzilla's DNA, but it's kaiju DNA. So maybe he's going to, like you said, maybe he is going to create I think that version, the Mecha Ghidorah, I think that's King Ghidorah. So they're going to either do that, or they're going to do Biollante is my two takes on it.
Nice, I love that. And what do you guys think? And this is one of my theories. Is the next movie obviously is called Kong versus Godzilla, but ultimately that they're going to team up. So somehow they're going to end up fighting. Yeah, and they're going to team up to fight the big baddie, which is going to be whichever villain we're talking about here. But what do you guys think about a potential team up, and how do you think that might come about?
I think
Aaron?
It'll come from, like you just mentioned with King Ghidorah, maybe they make the Mecha Godzilla. And my buddy actually said it's going to be, what do you think about it being like a Batman versus Superman kind of deal? Where they're like, hey, I hate you, and they start fighting, but then they realize there is a bigger threat that they need to team up together and fight, King Ghidorah.
Do you think both of their mothers are named Martha?
I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, they might both have Marthas too. I mean, that could very well be. I'm not entirely sure. I'm a super fan, but I don't know what their mother's name was. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that.
I don't think they even know their mother's names.
Okay, that's fair too. They've been around a little bit longer, so I don't know if it is or not.
I dropped a Batman vs Superman joke, and it just fell flat. So, apologies, Barfly Nation.
Got it. I just didn't pick it up, man. I mean, you dropped a good one on me. I didn't have a better comeback for you, so that was my bad.
At least you had a reaction. Tooch is sitting there like looking at me like he didn't get it. He's like, guilty as charged. He's frozen on his Skype looking at me right now.
Yep, no, the picture's froze. Tooch, you still with us?
Oh yeah, he's there.
I'm here.
Okay,
Yep.
very cool.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah,
we're
you're
good.
good. You're good,
Yeah,
but
totally.
Tooch, what do you think about a potential team up between Kong and Godzilla?
Well, I assumed they were going to fight, but I like the idea of a team up as well. Maybe they'll fight a little bit, like Aaron said, team up. That would be cool. I think I had forgotten that the Hydra was from outer space, man. So that was kind of cool. That opens up a whole new, thing. So if, like you said, the outer space Hydras come back, that would be a good team up versus Kong and Godzilla.
Oh, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff to come next year in Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla versus Kong. But one thing I can guarantee you is that Box Office Barflies will be there to talk about it. You can seal it and deliver it. We'll be here. We're also going to be here talking about Rocket Man possibly next week. We'll definitely be talking about Men in Black International. And then also talking about X-Men Dark Phoenix. So there is a ton of movies. We might have to do a double show talking about 2 movies coming up. Maybe see if we can get some barflies that are interested.
Summer's the best time for movies, man.
Summer is the best time, and I know I mentioned earlier to all of our listeners, but I Have a Stream will return next week. We'll be talking about Good Omens and Deadwood, and then I also got wind during this production of our show tonight that one of the most famous barflies, Tooch, is a big fan of Chernobyl and would like to come on the show to talk about it.
Oh man!
So we'll have to talk about Chernobyl soon as well. I'm talking about the voice of Bears Barroom. Dan Aguirre is a massive fan of Chernobyl.
Oh man!
So
That's
Dan,
exciting.
if you're out there listening, we would very much love to have you on the show.
The finale is tonight.
Tonight, I
is the
know.
finale.
I know.
Great.
I had to convince my girlfriend to let me come on the show.
Nice. Yeah.
So we know what Aaron's doing after the show.
Bet I'll be there. Yep, I'm gonna check out Chernobyl.
Yeah,
So
let's have Dan. I gotta work on some stuff with Dan then.
Absolutely, we'll get that coordinated.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a ton of stuff coming up. So everyone, make sure you're tuning into the Bears Barroom. Tons of content. We have entertainment. We've got streaming shows. We've got all the sports news you can handle. The Mike North Advantage was on earlier tonight with Mike North and the Barroom master himself. Yes, the Godfather, Aldo Gandia. A big thank you to those guys, and thank you to Aldo for letting us do what we do. Huge thank you to our special guest tonight, Aaron. Thank you for stopping by, my friend, and bringing your Godzilla knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for letting me work out. Not enough people have seen it, and when they get me talking Godzilla, they know that I won't shut up. So thanks for giving me a chance to vent a little bit.
Oh man, Aaron, great job.
No problem. And
Thank you
Tooch,
very much. Thanks for having me.
Great job, Joe.
Oh, no problem, man. Tooch, as always, thank you for joining us, brother.
All right.
And for all of you folks listening out there, we'll see you at the movies. A lot of them coming up, so we will catch you next time.
Dilly dilly! Dilly dilly!
Bye.